last week was a crazy week, and I felt bad because I'm asking all of you guys to be like, hey, what do you think about these players that we really haven't seen very much of outside of Jacob Lauko and Mittelstadt when he was in Buffalo for a little bit there. It's been 3 games now. The new era Bruins, they're 2-1. Obviously, the last loss is lingering, a frustrating one to say the least. But what do we think so far? You know, it's been 3 games. These guys, some new faces, an old face back in Jacob Lauko. But what has stuck out to you here through these first 3 games, if we had to summarize it?
I mean, from an individual standpoint, I think each one of them has shown some promise as far as what you got back at the trade deadline. You know, Mittelstadt's been a good addition, has point in every game, gets his first goal. Hustadinov gets his first goal as a Bruin the other night as well. Shown some good speed. And Jokiharju and Zadorov have been a pretty good pairing together over the course of the first 3 games. You know, things were a little rocky for the team defensively, obviously, the other night all the way around. But, and Lauko, you knew what you were getting in him, and he's delivered. And, man, he was selling out the other night. I mean, he took a couple of block shots that he was hurting, but the guy's fearless, and he'll do what it needs to be done. So, that's kind of what stands out to me is for those 4 especially, that the deals that you made brought you back players that look like they can fit in here and give you something, hopefully, over the long term.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mittelstadt's the key, right? I mean, I think with Jokiharju, they're taking a wait-and-see approach. Let's see how he plays. Let's see how he fits in. You know, puck-moving defenseman. He's not going to fill the role that Carlo had filled as a kind of defensive defenseman, shutdown type. So a much different type of player, but a right-hand shot. And maybe somebody that can complement Zadorov kind of moving forward. I think I think as advertised in terms of energy, there's a skill level there as well for Mittelstadt for sure. You know, we've seen that. He should have 4 points. He's got 3. They took one away from him in Tampa because of whatever that was. But he made the play, right, that resulted in the Koepke goal. So I think the guys they got in have played well. It's, you kind of go on adrenaline sometimes when you get moved. You know, it's a new team. It's a team that, honestly, where are the expectations for this team at this current state? And I think that you still have hopes to make the playoffs, obviously. And you win 2 out of 3 during the week. I don't think that should be discounted, right? You beat Tampa and you beat Florida. You did not come out the way you wanted to against Ottawa. The Senators played that like a playoff game right from the drop of the puck, and the Bruins weren't ready. It's, the first period was not good. They got better as the game went on, but by that point you're chasing the game. So, but you got to give them full marks for the teams that they did beat. And right now you're not chasing Ottawa. Ottawa has won 5 in a row. They've kind of distanced themselves. And you're mixed up with Columbus and Montreal and the Rangers and Detroit, who's on a free fall right now. Those are the teams that you still have an opportunity to catch, even though they have games in hand on you.
I think the big thing for me watching the first 3 games here of this new era, so to speak, with the guys they brought in, it feels like they've really kind of maybe self-corrected a little bit in terms of how big they went in the offseason, right? Putting a lot of pressure or a lot of focus on, being big, having a heavier forecheck. Like these guys, it feels like these guys have some good speed, right? And they've added that. You saw that Hustadinov goal where he just accelerates and he's off for the races, and it's like that's
would have been a penalty had not gone in,
right? And so you're finding ways to either generate calls your way, right? You can draw some penalties. There's just more speed, right? And I'm so happy, Bob, that you brought up Mittelstadt, right? Because I've been really impressed. Like he's not. You look at him, right? And we said this last week. I think he's not a prototypical Bruin, right? Like you look at him and he doesn't fit the mold of what you are, but you see the vision, right? And you see that he can make plays, and you're like, you need more of that in this lineup.
Need some skill.
Like. Right?
They needed some skill. They identified that, and Coyle brought them an element. Where was Charlie Coyle best suited? We've said that how many years? If he's the third line, if he's your third line center, you've got a good hockey team. And then because of the way that the season has gone, he's playing whatever second line right wing, if you want to call it second line. It's just there was no fit there. The fit had kind of come and gone. When you had Bergeron, Krejci, Coyle, like that's a strong lineup. And You're really strong down the middle, which is extremely important. So I think that you move Mittelstadt in. Where does he fit? Is he a number one center? Is he number two center? Is he going to be a number three center? That still remains to be seen. It's way too early to tell. But he definitely has a skill set. His ability. He got a lot of help from Lindholm the other day, but the ability to find Pastrnak in front with the aggressive penalty kill that Florida was employing, like that's a good play. Lindholm helps make that with the second effort, but Mittelstadt being able to find him, and that play was there for them too. During that game because of how aggressive Florida was. But 3 points in 3 games, good start. He's not going to blow you away with speed, but he's got a hockey IQ and he's got a good skill set, and that's we'll just kind of hopefully it continues to move forward and he develops some good chemistry. I don't think those will be his line mates moving forward. Maybe they will, but I don't think they will. If you're going to try to get the most out of him.
I almost wonder, too, if maybe he's got, a little chip on his shoulder, too, because it didn't go the way he was expecting it to go in Colorado. We talked about it the other night, Beersy. You mentioned, in Colorado, you're behind some damn good players. And so, he didn't, when the first time he talked to us down in Tampa, he talked a little bit about the fact that, his role in Colorado wasn't exactly what he wanted it to be, and he wasn't getting enough power play time, and and he wasn't getting used the way that he wanted to. And so maybe a change of scenery after a year, he comes here and he, wants to prove them wrong and say, I can play at a higher level in this league than you were letting me.
He's a top 10 pick. I think he was 9 overall, 8 or 9 overall for Buffalo. He's because of his skill set. Now, Buffalo how many good players have left Buffalo? And he goes to Colorado. He's still a young player. He's only 26 years old or 25 years old. Correct me if I'm wrong. 26. Okay, third team, 26 years old. At some point, maturity comes in. And I don't know him well enough as a person, right? We haven't gotten that far yet, but maturity sets in. You get into a more stable organization. Not that Colorado wasn't. Buffalo certainly isn't. But Colorado, like we're just saying, you're playing, it's a much different role that he's going to have here than he's had in Colorado. And it's going to be, it just is a better organization than the Buffalo Sabres. And because, what is it, 13 or 14 years now, they're not going to make the playoffs. 14, I think, at least 14.
I think 2010 was last time, or maybe 2011, I think was last time they were there.
So you've got, and how many great, really good players have gone on to big things, whether it's the Vezina and Allmark, whether it's Stanley Cups and Montour and Eichel and, all
Reinhart.
Reinhart, all these good players who have left the Buffalo Sabres. So you're hoping that kind of clicks here for Mittelstadt. Okay, third team. Time for some stability, time for some maturity, time for some, to fulfill my expectation coming out as a high pick.
It feels like another crack at sort of replicating the Pavel Zacha trade to a degree, where it's a guy who, granted Zacha was on one team, but a high draft pick who didn't necessarily pan out the way that maybe his franchises envisioned him, right? But you're getting him while he's still young. He's not a finished product necessarily. Like, if you can elevate that player, that's part of your job. And it really does feel like now that we look back on it, like the Bruins sort of looked at the deadline, looked at the prices, and said, the guys we're going to bring in just fit what we're doing more now than Charlie Coyle, as good as he was a year ago, as good as he's been for the Bruins, as you noted, Bob, when he's a great third-line center. Like, we're approaching a different era, so now we have to figure out where some new pieces kind of fit in. And, Mittelstadt, like that's a player that I like taking a chance on a guy like that, because he's still young and he can still figure it out. And, I think that I thought Nikita Zadorov had a really good quote after the game on Tuesday where he basically said, like, we have a locker room full of guys that need to prove something or feel like they need to prove something either to management, to themselves, to a new fan base, to their old teams, whatever the case may be. And it does feel like a lot of those guys, especially the 3 guys they've brought in here, are playing like that right now.
Yeah, can I throw Zadorov? You mentioned his name. He's a plus 15 on a team that doesn't score 5-on-5 very well. Well, they don't score power play either, but they don't score. They're one of the lower teams 5-on-5 scoring. They've allowed a ton of goals. Their goal differential's a massive
30.
difference.
Yeah.
Mason Lohrei's got so much upside in terms of what he can do offensively. We've seen that on display. Defensively, he's still trying to figure out. He's minus 22. You take those plus 15, minus 22. That's a massive discrepancy, right? I mean, and I know that plus minus isn't always the thing. And Zadorov's taken some heat this year, and some of the penalties he took. Sometimes he runs out of position a little bit. He's dialed that in, or he's reeled that in. And wasn't everybody a fan of what he did to Bennett the other day?
Oh, we're gonna get to that. We are.
He's provided the physical presence this year. Look, he's come under heat this year, and he's deserved some of it because it took him a while to really acclimate himself to the system. He's a guy that likes to run and rove a little bit and make that big hit. He's had some long shifts stuck inside, in the second periods where he can't get off the ice. But he's provided the physical presence. He's stepped up for his teammates and fought when necessary. He's, like I said, it took him a while to reel in some of the penalties he was taking, and he's done that. He's been much better lately. Much better lately. And if that's a sign of things to come for him, and then you slot him in the right spot, when you get Hampus Lindholm back next year, now he doesn't have to play the 22 minutes. Maybe he's playing, 17 to 20 or whatever the number is. But he's slotted in a better spot, and so is Lohrei. So Lohrei's taken some good steps this year. He still has to work on his defensive game. There's deficiencies there. He still has to work on being harder in certain areas. But the skating ability, the offensive ability is definitely there. Now that has to come. But you get McAvoy and Lindholm back in, all of a sudden you slot guys in the right spot, and they've gotten a lot of time this year to kind of improve their games. And I think that's encouraging moving forward.
Just to the point about Zadorov penalties, he's taken 2 minor penalties in the last, I think it's 12 games. I mean, he still is the leader in penalty minutes in the league, but so much of that is from the first half of the season. And as Bearsy said, he really kind of calmed himself down and has focused more on keeping out of the penalty box except when needed. And
he hasn't run out of position nearly as much. Yeah. He was running at guys in the neutral zone with no support in the middle, was leading to 2-on-1s. And we kind of knew that coming in. It was going to take him a little while to, sometimes less is more. You still want him to make that big hit once in a while. He has to put some, there's a fear factor there. Guys know when he's on the ice and he can hit. But at the same time, just doing it at the right time.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's been the biggest thing for him. It's funny, I was talking to somebody about playing against Zadorov, and their response was, it sucks. He just, that he's going to, get you. If you keep your head down, he's going to get you, or he's going to jab at you. And it's hard to play against him. And I think we're seeing more of that without the recklessness that he had early in the year. And they're a better team. And I think, Bob, to your point, they had their ideal left side for, 12 games? And throughout those 12 games, Nikita Zadorov is trying to figure out where he fits in a new city, in a new team, in a new system. And Lohrei didn't have a great start to the year either.
No, and, how many guys did have a good start? They were, Geeky's over 20 goals now. He had a slow start to the season. Coyle had a slow start to the season, right? Zach had a slow start to the season. Pasternak had a slow start to the season. Defensively, everybody had a slow start to the season. You can go back to McAvoy. He had whatever was on his mind or whatever. He kind of had a little time before he kind of ramped it up a little bit. You can't point to anybody that was real. Swayman. Who can you point to at the first half of the year, or the Jim Montgomery tenure here at the beginning of the season, that was playing really well? The fourth line.
That was it. Yeah. The fourth line.
Kepke was +9 in the first 10 games. He's +8 now, I think. So it's like, that line carried you. That was the only reason you were in games. So Lindholm. Not Hampus, but Elias Lindholm had a slow start. They all had slow starts to the season, and it led to where they are right now.
And it's amazing they're still alive in the Eastern Conference playoff race. That second wild card, as you mentioned, Bob, Ottawa's looking like they've taken that first one and run with it here.